Stay in your bag, double up that choke, keep making more. No time for excuses, too much opportunity on the floor. Maybe that's why I'm a game changer. Miss Grayson told me how my name is.
Youth violence is a major public health issue that affects not only victims, but also their families, witnesses, perpetrators, and their communities. However, youth violence is preventable, and innovative programs across the U.S. are lighting the way. CDC's National Centers of Excellence in Youth Violence Prevention, or YVPCs, are academic community collaborations that advance the science and practice of youth violence prevention. Working together with communities, YVPCs develop, implement, and evaluate strategies to prevent violence and create protective family and community environments. Understanding that there is no single solution to youth violence, YVPCs apply comprehensive prevention approaches that address multiple risk and protective factors that support families, empower youth to choose safe, healthy behaviors, connect youth to caring adults and activities, and build healthier, safer communities. With positive results throughout the country, YVPCs are leading the way to reducing violence and creating safe, stable, nurturing communities for all youth to thrive. To learn more, visit www.cdc.gov/violence-prevention/YVPC.
Justice, No Peace, and Unrestricted Revolution. I'm Donnie.
I'm Janelle.
I'm Kalia. And the song that was just playing at the start of this live stream was called Game Changers by BKJ Swag, one of our game changers here in Denver. And he made it specifically for our Youth Violence Prevention Week. Today we're closing out an impactful week, Youth Violence Prevention Week, which is a crucial time for communities to come together, raise awareness. Sorry, did you guys were not able to hear me? Okay, I'm gonna run it back real quick. Okay, let's start from the top.
No justice, no peace, and unrestricted revolution. My name is Donnie Austin.
I'm Janelle.
And I'm Kalia. And that song that was just playing is Game Changers by BKJ Swag, one of our game changers here in Denver. And he made it specifically for our Youth Violence Prevention Week. Today we're closing out an impactful week, Youth Violence Prevention Week, which is a crucial time for communities to come together, raise awareness, and take action against youth violence. This week serves as a reminder of the importance of addressing the root causes of violence and supporting youth in various ways, and positively.
Absolutely, Kalia. This week is particularly significant as we reflect on the work being done across the country to prevent youth violence.
So y'all, before we begin, we want to remind our listeners that the views expressed in this presentation are those of the presenters, and they do not constitute statements of policy or necessarily represent the views of the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services or the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
And because we discussed the Black youth perspective on the minority experience in America, we also need to hit y'all with our trigger alert. So I'm going to ask Janelle if she could read our trigger alert for us today.
Of course I can read the trigger alert. If you are not 110% in support of Black Lives Matter, please dismiss yourself. If you are in any sort of agreement with the systemic oppressions this country has inflicted on minorities, once again, please dismiss yourself. And if you are not willing to give every bit of the power that the people so undeniably deserve, then please dismiss yourself. Because in a few moments, you will witness vast amounts of Black engagement. And if you do not dismiss yourself, then the thoughts, facts, and feelings we are about to share will most definitely dismiss you.
Period. And as for our listeners, as we have this discussion, you are not off the hook from doing some work too. We want your take. What are your questions and your comments as you listen? The chat box will be open for you to leave your questions and comments. Towards the end of the show, we will have dedicated time towards solely addressing them. And just like always, we will end this episode with a call to action. So before we dive into our discussion with YVPC Michigan, let's take a moment to consider the profound impact of gun violence on our communities, especially among our youth. From trauma and grief to the broader risks and factors contributing to this epidemic, understanding these complexities is crucial in our efforts to prevent such tragedies.
The experiences and insights we'll hear today shed light on realities faced by many young people in the communities affected by gun violence. Let's explore these issues together and consider how we can work together towards meaningful change.
All right, y'all. So with that in mind, let's turn to YVPC Michigan to hear their perspective on the harms of gun violence and the risk factors they see in their communities.
So our first question, also thank you for being here today. Our first question for y'all is, can you share a little bit about where you grew up and what the neighborhood was like, and how does gun violence affect you and the people around you in your community?
Okay, hi, I'm Tayana. I'm from Muskegon, Michigan. Um, I grew up in Muskegon Heights, and my neighborhood was, we had potholes everywhere in our neighborhood. There isn't a grocery store, so there's no place where you have to get fresh produce. You'd have to go what we call across the train tracks just to get to fresh produce. Um, I live in a redlining area, so my area is just it's full of black people. It's a black people community. Um, and there's a lot of gun violence in the community due to us not having the proper resources um, that the other neighborhoods do have.
Hi, my name is Marquette from Muskegon, Michigan. I live in Muskegon Heights and my neighborhood is really rough. I can sit in my room, look out my window. I can hear gunshots across the street, 4 blocks away, 2 streets up, wherever it may be. Children don't even feel safe to come outside and play no more because they in danger of a stray bullet hitting them, getting picked up off the street, falling down in the street, stepping in some glass. Like, it's really bad and tragic out there.
Hi, my name's Uriah. I'm originally from Grand Rapids, but was raised in I was raised in Muskegon, downtown Muskegon, and similar to Tayana and Marquette, I was close by Muskegon Heights, and um, I was around the potholes, I was around the shootings, and it wasn't a good feeling. It wasn't really a safe feeling environment, and I don't think that's something that I should have been going through at my young age. And so um yeah, it's a sometimes a rough foundation, but we're getting through it.
Hi, my name is Heaven. I'm from Muskegon, Michigan. And I've lived like almost everywhere in Muskegon Heights, and downtown, everywhere. And so I've lived in a place what people call the projects, where there's a lot of most of the crime goes on there. Like they literally have police patrolling that only community. And so gun violence affected our community because nobody really knows who's going to be next, because there's bullets don't have no name on them, and sometimes they just shoot whenever they want to, not even at nobody.
My name is Yadira Tinoco. I grew up in Muskegon, Michigan. My neighborhood, when I was younger, it wasn't always the safest, but my parents always tried to stay close with family. And now I live on the border of Muskegon Heights, but my school is still in the center of all the danger and all the crimes, shootings down the street. Sorry, every day is kind of scary at school. Um, we have a lot of threats and everything, but even just the roads and the way people act, I really hope it gets better.
My name is Kanaya. I'm from Washington, D.C., and both of my elementary schools were in Southeast, and Southeast is Okay, so from Ward 7 and Ward 8, that's basically like the hood, the ghetto. That's where like low poverty happens and stuff like that. And so both of my elementary schools, well, one of them particularly, Achievement Prep, that was in the middle of two neighborhoods. So you had Waller Place and you had I forgot the other one, but it was just like in the middle of two neighborhoods that always beef with each other. And now, like our current year now, they have like a big, I guess it's like a camera thing, but like they monitor who drives by and stuff like that. So that's where I grew up.
My name is Micah Johnla. I grew up in Washington, D.C. I'm originally from Emory Heights, but then I moved to Southeast. And I say like Southeast is really like a dangerous place, really dangerous place because you can walk down the street, you can get robbed, you can get shot, you don't know what can happen. So like it's really a lot that goes on in Southeast, but like you just gotta stick through it. You gotta stick with your family, stick with your loved ones. But it's like a really dangerous environment when you walk down Southeast and the roads of DC.
All right, hi, my name is Phil. I grew up in Washington, D.C., Northeast. And Northeast does have its good and bad days, but speaking on the bad days, you have to understand where you're at certain times, and that's not even humane to live in. Like, sometimes I can walk down the street and you would hear like shootings like passing by you. Like, you can be caught in the crossfire at all times, depending on where you're at in Northeast. And now I have to move around in Southeast as well. It's just getting worse as it goes.
I definitely want to thank all of you guys for sharing. I know that a lot of times, like a lot of you guys were expressing that a lot of youth in your community also have access to these guns and these weapons, and a lot of like youth are afraid to go outside just because of the amount of like danger that's really out there and the amount of violence that's out there. So I just have a quick question for you guys. Why do you think guns are so accessible to youth within your communities?
Um, One thing that I see a lot in Muskegon is a lot of people have access to guns through the police, which is like really, really crazy. But there's a lot of corrupted cops in Muskegon, and I know that that's where some people are able to get access to guns by making deals with the police, and yeah.
Um, for me personally, some of my family members have guns in their house for their own like protection for their own values and morals, I guess. But for a lot of kids, it's easy access to guns because like they friends have guns or they're in gang related activities. So guns and weapons just come by nowhere. I mean, people are really getting crafty. You can go on YouTube and buy a gun. You can learn how to make a gun. Like the supplies is really not that hard to find, or at least in Muskegon, Michigan, it's not.
I agree with everything that Marquette and Tayana said. It could also be lack of parenting, absent parent, or even both parents absent, not enough monitoring, not enough boundaries as well. And so, I know in my community, that's a problem where teenagers get hold of guns and then shots fired at the schools that are in that area, and I don't think that should be happening. And I feel like these people who do get a hold of the guns, instead of automatically turning everything on them, getting in their face about it, I think we should help them and do what we can to make them feel like they have a safe foundation to live in.
I'm a sort of piggyback off of what Uriah Marquette and Tayana said, but I believe it is sort of a lack of parent supervision because they can go outside to find like supervision from other people, and they are the type of people that'll get them in that type of mess. Like, here, you need a gun to protect yourself because who gonna protect you if I'm not here? And I feel like, and it just goes the wrong way, so they have like conflict with somebody else, and like that's their first thought is to pull out a gun on them.
I would say a lot of unresponsible adults, even who know that their kids are getting involved in gangs, they just support it instead of the opposite, and they feed more into it, and it just makes it worse.
All right, so here in DC, it's like becoming like sort of a norm to have a gun, like especially as a teenager, because the level of like crime that goes on, like you could be walking out of the metro station and get robbed easily. So if you're not like ready or have some on you, like you basically cook.
I feel like getting a gun is like taking candy from a baby. Like it's really easy. Like there's so many gun stores in DC, just in DC, and there's more spread out across America. And I feel like what Phil said, like it's like you have to have a gun to protect yourself. But most people they do it just to be cool. But like if you don't have a gun, like you can't protect yourself. There's a lot of stuff going on in the city.
So just to add on to what everybody else was saying, I do agree with the lack of parenting, especially in DC, because I feel like nowadays, um, a lot of parents are their children's friend, and there's no like set boundary as in I'm your parent, I'm not your friend. We don't. I feel like parents should not have um conversations with their child until a certain age. Like you should not be smoking with your child, drinking with your child, etc. And another thing that I wanted to add was social
The
media.
water thing is up there.
Sorry, continue.
Sorry. Another thing that I wanted to add was social media, especially in DC. I feel like since we have so many hoods, like um, and youngins, they grow up to be in a bad neighborhood. So you have people that's 12 years old who are outside, making money, robbing people, carjacking. Like carjacking plays a big role in our community here in DC. So that's how that's why I like to say that it's accessible to youth getting guns in our community.
Another way that I've known uh, children to get guns is even younger children. I've had a couple of younger cousins that have died, not just from like getting shot, but of the lack, like you said, it's backs off of lack of parenting and lack of having the proper equipment to lock up your firearm if you are licensed to carry. There's been a few incidents in Muskegon where little bitty babies, little toddlers have been able to get a hold of a gun and has um, made a mistake of killing a loved one, like their cousin. I had a cousin that killed another cousin um, by accident, and they were about like 7 years old. So yeah, the lack of knowing how to lock up properly your firearm.
Thank you for all of your perspectives. I feel like you guys really covered like a wide range of a lot of the reasons we're talking about why gun violence is an issue in our community. And especially I want to thank the people who are from DC because I go to college there at Howard, so I'm not from the area and I don't really like know what it's like to like live there, but I think it's important to have all of your perspectives on living in Michigan and DC and what gun violence looks like there. And for this next question, just for the sake of time, maybe like bounce around and have like 3 or 4 people answer. Additionally, what connections do you see between trauma like adverse child experiences or ACEs and gun violence?
The connection I see between people with ACEs, that with people with more ACEs, they're more likely to go get into
If
gangs or
someone's
more
talking
like
right now, I don't think we can. Oh, sorry. Sorry, continue. That's my bad.
uh, I feel like people who have more ACEs in their household are more likely to be pushed off or led into like a path of violence, a path of trouble, um, a path of gangs. Yeah. Oh, and drugs as well.
I feel like people with a lot of trauma and adverse childhood experiences is that um if it goes like untreated, like they probably feel as though like, oh, this is normal now since I've been in it so long that it's normal for me to feel this way and it's normal like everybody goes through this, and so they have it untreated and it just like boils up inside until the point where they snap, and when they can snap, it could either be them picking up a gun or just going into drugs very heavily, just like destroying their life because they're like, what's the point now?
I feel like most of the personalities, like most of the youth personalities, it starts when they're young. So like their childhood experiences, like seeing somebody get shot, like when they're like 6, 7, like it's just crazy. And like when they don't have good parents and they don't have a strong household, like everything is just normalized to them. So all this drinking, all this smoking, all this doing all this partying and stuff, like they don't have no support at home. So like it can be hard for them to know what's good and what's right and what's wrong. So
Thank you for those perspectives. Once again, it's invaluable to this conversation. I feel like it's clear that from all of us here on the call, the impact of gun violence extends way beyond self-harm when it comes to, as you said, like losing people in your family or in your community. It also can affect people in the community on an emotional level, where it's like a feeling of instability. And this brings us into our next topic of grief and trauma.
I do want to say that grief and trauma are complex experiences that can result from exposure to gun violence, affecting not only those directly involved, like you guys said, but also their families, their friends, and even communities.
So, YVPC Michigan, we'd love to hear your perspective on grief and trauma and in the context of gun violence. What does grief mean to you personally?
So to me, grief. So I said this a few months ago in a news interview, actually, and I said that grief does not have an expiration date. I feel like nowadays we lose so many people that it's hard to like keep track of who we're grieving. And just to like throw out an example, I lost my cousin Kendall in June of 2022, and then 5 months later, I lost my friend Akira in November of 2022. And I didn't get to see Kendall in her casket like close up, so I didn't have that closure that I needed. So I held on to that guilt of one. I had just spoke to her the week before she passed, because she had graduated a week before she passed also, and then it was the fact that it's a big family, so see each other every day, talk to each other every day, but we follow each other on Instagram, and so I held on to that guilt for a few months, and then when I lost my friend Akira, it was like, okay, everything is very similar. They both had like pink and purple and blue, and like their funeral and stuff like that. And so seeing Akira, I broke down, and it was like in a sense, it was like I'm grieving Akira, but I'm also grieving Kendall, and I felt like I took away from that moment because I felt guilty that I wasn't grieving my friend at that moment. I was grieving my cousin. And I held on to that guilt because it was like it was unfair to Akira because she had also lost her life. So it was like I'm trying to battle the two of losing my cousin and losing my friend in the span of months.
My cousin was shot and killed in her own home by her brother. Um, I never got to see my cousin, never got to meet her. And it's like her birthday just recently passed. Everyone's posting her. And I feel like, it's kind of hard because it's like, I want to grieve for her because it's like your family, but I can't have that personal connection to grieve with you because I've never met you. We've never spoke, never even seen you in person. But it's like, I feel so sad because it's just like, that's a tough way to go out. Like to be shot in your head in your own home by your brother. That's crazy. But for me personally, grief is just like a time where sometimes I really lose myself and I just be needing somebody there by my side to make sure that I don't spiral and tweak out because grief can really eat a person alive. All right.
Um, Grief to me means number one, like Marquette said, spiraling. It's not a good feeling at all, but there could also be proper grief and improper grief. Um, Proper grief is like you're handling things well. You're upset of the fact that you will eventually have to let things go, but you're still holding on to it. And then improper grief, you fall into a state of depression, anxiety, isolation, and social anxiety, a bunch of different things. And so I think it's something that
You're all right.
needs to be
I'm good.
definitely
I'll get it.
dealt with. Definitely needs to be handled in the proper ways, and also with proper coping skills.
I want to jump in and just extend my condolences, especially to you two who just shared that you've lost people and going through grief, because that's definitely something that I know I can relate with, and I'm sure a lot of other people in the call can also relate with. And I just want to highlight you guys for being strong too, because it's really difficult and trying to push through that to be able to spread positivity even though you guys are going through so much in life, and it seems like a lot of people aren't able to be there for that support. But with that being said, I also want to ask, like, how have you guys been able to find handling grief? Because you mentioned about like the spiraling. How have you been able to keep yourself from spiraling and keep yourself grounded? And what advice do you have to support your peers who are grieving?
So I'll go first. So to go back a few years, 6 years, um, soon, I lost my cousin Damani in 2018. I was 11 in the sixth grade. And when I lost him, I didn't deal with my grief at all. I was very angry at the world because I felt like you took something away from me, that I can never get back. And I think I was more angry at the fact that he would have been turning 18 in 12 days. He would have been graduating, and he had a brother on the way who was born 3 months after he passed. And his brother now looks just like him. So I was very angry at the world. I distanced myself from people. Again, I'm in sixth grade, so it was like it's nothing much I can really do. Of course, I fell into depression. I wasn't eating properly. I was really losing my mind. And so again, I held on to that for 4 years. Then I lost my cousin Kendall in 2022. Again, I was very angry, and I felt like again you took something away from me that I could never get back. And with Kendall, it hurt me the most because she was the cousin that lived her life to the fullest. And, you know, she was a honor roll student. She had just graduated from high school. She was on her way to college. And the day that she passed, she was supposed to go to North Carolina Central University for her orientation day and never made it. And again, I didn't get to see her in the casket, so I held on to that guilt. 5 months later, I lose my friend Akira. And with Akira, out of all three deaths, I feel like that hurt me like to the core because she was killed by somebody who she thought she was her friend. And Akira was very friendly. She was friends with everybody. She didn't care who you was, what you did. She was gonna rock with you to the end. And yeah, it really messed with my mental because again, Akira was on her way out the door. She didn't get to go to prom, no graduation, and it broke my heart to see that her seat at graduation was empty. And her parents and her family have to move on with, you know, not knowing their daughter potential in the world, and she was going to be an angel for sure. So to go back a little bit, on Kendall's 4th-month anniversary, I founded my own gun violence prevention and awareness organization called Broken Concrete DC, and basically Broken Concrete DC memorializes youth who have perished to gun violence, and the cracks in the concrete represents their names. And so I honor them just to let the world know who they were, and I say their names. I never let my cousins and my friend name go in vain because I know the potential that they could have had in this world. And this past Monday, my cousin was shot in the leg and he was grazed in the head. And by the grace of God, he survived. And it was definitely a miracle because I've never had anybody survive gun violence before. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I could have taken the mental capacity to deal with another loss and to have to sit through another funeral and just know that another cousin of mine is now deceased. And so my advice to people is to keep pushing. It's hard. You know, you're going to lose your mind a few times, but you're gonna get through it, and it's gonna be some better days ahead.
I I appreciate that so much. I have to say too before we move on, you are so amazing. Just hearing about the organization you founded and how you've gone through all of these things, but seeing all of you here on this call so strong and so eloquent, it's talking about it so openly, we greatly appreciate it. And specifically talking about, going through those things and wanting to make something of it and wanting their legacy to not be in vain. I feel like the as YVPC, the prevention and the protection strategies that we use play a crucial role in keeping youth safe from gun violence. So I want to ask you guys again, why do you personally care about the issue of gun violence prevention and, just all of your perspectives on that?
Um, I care a lot about gun violence prevention, because I'm also in a group at my school called the Hope Squad, and we deal with suicide prevention, and most importantly, suicides usually connect to guns, and so um, I feel like the lead the lead cause of suicide is definitely like guns, and so from somebody who has been depressed, had anxiety, has been diagnosed with a bunch of different stuff in my past. I really just got through it by the grace of God, um, and really got locked into my Christianity, my religion, and things like that. I knew that I couldn't take things into my own hands, and so I had to accept the fact that I did need help, and where I am now is not where I would have thought I would have been today. And so, yeah.
It's important to me, and why I care about it is because one, back in 2019, I had a brother. He lives with his aunt, and so him and his friends had found his aunt's gun, and like they were playing around with it, and him and his friend both got shot. They survived, but just that and her not putting it away properly, and not like this, like hiding the bullets and stuff from the gun and all of that stuff, like it just made me think like what can happen to like anybody else's child finding their gun that they have in the house. And also, I have another brother. He was with his uncle, and some men just came up to his uncle's house, opened the door, and just shot him. And he watched his uncle bleed out in front of him. So it just like I wish I could have like prevented him from being like able to see that. But I know like I can't be everywhere at once. But hopefully, being in a group like this and inspiring other people can help youth to not pick up guns and all of that stuff.
Why it's important to me is because just recently my boyfriend and I were threatened by a gun as well on school grounds by some gangs, and it was over nonsense. So I can only imagine how worse it's going to get for my sister and my younger cousins. I don't want it to be so easy for guns to be on school grounds and for you to be threatened by them and for you to be scared to go get an education.
Gun violence is important to me because, as I just shared with y'all, my cousin was shot and killed in her head by her brother. But also because I have a younger brother. His name is Jordan. He is 7 years old, and he lives with his mom and his other two siblings. But he lives in a really poor community in Muskegon, Michigan, where kids can't go outside. People are out there all night long shooting their guns, whether it's 4th of July or even just a regular Monday, just shooting just to be shooting. And my thing is, my brother is really active, young, want to see the world, want to experience the world. You want to go outside, but you can't do that. And I can't even live in the world just knowing that my brother can't go outside, because I would hate for him to go outside and catch a stray bullet. So gun violence is important to me because I just want to make it a safer world for my people and for everyone else around.
Okay, I'm gonna keep this short because I know we're on a time limit. But I just want to say gun violent prevention is a big it's very important to me because youth are the future, and we up here are the future. Um, and right now, the main cause of gun violence is youth, and youth are being attacked, and that is what's really going on. So I would want to prevent that. So all of us will be able to have a future. And I have a son, and I want to be able to have him look back on this And like, this is not your only choice. You do not have to pick up a gun. You don't have to join any gangs or nothing like that. You have so much more opportunity than just the streets.
First, I do want to give kudos definitely to all of you guys who shared. I definitely agree with the point that firearms, especially around children, should be put away, and they should know, or people who have those firearms around children definitely should know how to safeguard them. And that comes like from a personal standpoint from me as well. Just as a youth, my mother was a police officer, and she would just like sometimes leave her gun on the table, and like I was like curious and just was like messing with it. And there was a time where I actually could have shot myself in the head, and I'm so like thankful that she came running down because she heard the lock go off and like snatched it away from me. So I 100% agree with you guys, because that could have been a simple mistake, and that really could have been my life. And also, we also expressed how lots of times that it's hard when you lose a loved one, dealing with grief. We don't always know how to deal with it, and we don't always know how to like cope. And that comes a lot with like just distancing yourself, acting different. And so I'm curious, like, besides like experiencing grief, like how can you share a safe space in your community against gun violence? Like, what did that safe space look like for you guys?
One safe space for me was actually my job. I work for Pathfinders at Muskegon, Michigan. And that was a place that I could go, and I had people there that were able to listen to me and was there for me when I needed them. Even if I just needed somebody to hold my hand or give me a hug, I was able to go to them and talk to them. No matter what it is, if I needed a place to stay, they were there for me. So I think really having that support, a big support group behind you that is able to be there for you, is a big um, is a big way to handle grief, because you don't never want to be alone when you are grieving, because you being alone and you holding that anger or guilt and stuff in, it's not healthy at all. So having someone to talk to, and for somebody having somebody to listen to you about what you're going through and how you're feeling, I feel as though plays a big part in getting through grief.
For me, my safe space is my youth group and my friends. I specifically want to shout out my advisor Lauren and my friend Uriah. This week, they showed me that like when people say you can come and talk to me and I'll sit there and listen, I really took it to heart. I was able to vulnerably just express myself and just confide in them and just really let myself go and show them a side that I ain't never shown them before. So I really do appreciate them for being here. And I do appreciate them for taking the time to just help me through what I'm going through and provide a safe space for me at all times possible.
My biggest support is my parents, my whole family, friends, and my relationship. I know a lot of people don't have family to rely on, but I really would push you guys to build friendships and relationships with people outside that you guys can get like a healthy support from.
Mhm.
All right, so my support group is basically like since I play football here in DC, it's definitely my coaches and my teammates and whatnot, and definitely my friends, regardless. They push me to be the best of what I can be, and they push me to be a better person every day, and I just love them.
Period.
Um, uh, so my protective factors, I'm gonna simplify to that. My protective factors are my friends, my family, and most importantly, my mom and dad, because they're entrepreneurs and they're pushing me to be entrepreneurs as well, and always counting on me to to try my hardest, counting on me to keep up the good work because I have so much life ahead of me and so many things ahead of me, and so I thank God, and I'm super blessed to have a loving family and have loving friends as well.
My support factor, my safe space is definitely my programs, cause like the adults feel like my big brothers and my big sisters, and they always try to take care of me and make sure I'm not in the streets, I'm not in jail, like I stay out of jail and stay out of trouble.
Well, for everybody that did just share, I want to again highlight y'all for sharing and pinpoint a couple things that I did hear. One, the vulnerability, paying attention to the fact that you were able to feel vulnerable within that space. Like, that's really commendable. And then also, I kind of forgot your name, but you highlighting your faith and getting into your spirituality, into your Christianity, I also want to commend that as well, because I feel like a lot of the time nobody tells us what's good. Like, you guys mentioned that there's things that are good, there's things that are bad, and I feel like a lot of our youth are trying to distract ourselves with not being so reminded and doing things that are leading us that feel that gratification in the moment, but then when you have to take back and look at everything and process how it's affecting your life and the consequences, it can still be hard. So I do want to commend you guys for sharing that. And then also I want to continue to say that be that support place for other people too. Like, continue to open up those businesses, the entrepreneur, the safe spaces that you guys know we need. And like you said, the youth is the future. So I'm really proud to just be able to meet a whole bunch of people that I've never been able to talk to before and feel so much power and so much just empowerment that you guys are going to be able to spread. Big kudos to y'all. Yeah.
So I just want to thank you guys once again so much, YVPC Michigan, for sharing your perspectives and your insights. Once again, we could not be doing this without y'all, and your contributions to this conversation have been so important. And we know y'all have to go, but love y'all. Thank you.
Bye.
Love you.
So as we continue our conversation, let's shift our focus to the topics of family responsibility, community responsibility, and mental health. These are crucial aspects that play a significant role in addressing youth violence.
So YVPC Kansas City, let's start with y'all. How do you think the youth are influenced by the violence they see within their families?
Can you still hear us? First, let's do a mic check. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear y'all.
Hello? Welcome to the last day of the amazing time of honoring Youth Violence Prevention Week. We here in Kansas City are joining our makeshift studio by a few of our youth leadership team members from several of our schools in Wyandotte County. I'm your mediator, Brashnik Watson, 11th grade youth navigator drive, which means together helping reduce youth violence and equity. I will now turn it over to my co-moderators and youth leadership team members as we each introduce ourselves, themselves, their grade, and their school. And then answer the question.
Hello, I'm happy to be here. My name is Thomas. I'm from Sumner Academy. I'm a freshman, and I've been with Thrive since 8th grade. I'll pass it on to another member of Thrive.
Just project out to the eye.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Veronica, and I go to Southern Academy, and I've been with Thrive. This is my first year with Thrive, and I'll pass it on to Angie. I'll pass it on to Angie.
Hi, my name is Angie Mensa. I'm a freshman that goes to Sumner Academy, and it's my first year with Thrive. And I'll be passing it on to Manaya.
Hello, my name is Manaya. I am a sophomore at Wyandotte High School, and I've been with Thrive for 2 years. I'll pass it on to another co-host member.
Hello, my name is Rhea. I'm a junior at Wyandotte High School, and I've been with Thrive since my freshman year of high school, and I'll be passing it to my co-host, Anisha.
Hello, my name is Arnesia. I'm a junior at Wyandotte, and I've been at Thrive for 1 year. And I'm going to be passing it on to Mark.
My name is Michael. I go to Southern Academy. I'm in 8th grade. I've been at Thrive for 1 year. Passing Cortez.
Hello, my name is Cortez. I go to Sumner Academy. I've been part of Thrive for 1 year.
You don't need
It was really nice to meet all of you guys. Thank you for contributing to the cause. I am just going to restate the question. How do you think youth are influenced by violence they see within their families?
I say it starts with the family. I said youth can be influenced by violence with the families because it starts at a young age.
I think adults have a very big role. Have a very influence on their children's life. And I think it starts with the adults in the child's life, because an adult's responsibility to take care of their child kind of reflects how that child will turn out. And I think not even just the family, but the community around, but we'll get to that later. It really starts with the adults in the family and how they treat their child and how they raise them. And that child will reflect how they have been taught. And how can that influence them? Pass that on to
How's it influence them?
Yeah.
Children are like, they learn from the people around them. So like the environment that they are raised in is how they will act better in their future. So influence them by how the way they live and in the behaviors they see. So that's how it would influence them.
Kids are sponges, so they repeat and mimic everything they see. So if they're around violence a lot, they're going to mimic that behavior and carry it on. So families play the biggest role because families is a kid's first teacher.
I definitely agree with. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Seeing violence in their families can have a big impact on young people. It can affect their mental and health, emotions, well-being, leading to feelings of fear, insecurity, and trauma. They may struggle with trust and have difficulties forming healthy relationships, and may even become destined to violence. It's crucial to provide support and resources to help them cope and heal from these experiences.
So, do you guys think that should parents do more to monitor their kids to try to see how this violent, or if they are doing violent actions, so they monitor their kids to watch them to make sure everything's going okay?
Yeah.
I have a question, guys. So we talked about, like, I definitely do agree with you guys that students do pick up on the environments that they are and they mimic a lot of behaviors. But then it also made me think, like, why are the parents' environments like that? Like, when you look at systemic racism and those who do not benefit from white privilege, you get put in situations where a lot of those families are struggling to where they don't have the time and the mental capacity to be able to focus on their children. And I feel like that's why so many families put trust inside of the schools. So do you feel like it could be a balance between parental supervision and then also the 8 hours of a day that a student stays inside of a school, that they should also influence that child's behavior, supervise, and lean back on that parent's trust to be able to take care of the children?
Veronica, you got an answer? Oh, absolutely. I feel like parents should have more parental, like they should pay attention more to their kids, especially because they're at school. Because there's so many things that could happen at school. Like a kid, this is how kids get into drugs. This is how it starts. Like they get pressured by their friends, and their friends are like, "Hey, do this. I tried it. I saw my mom doing it. It was really cool. It's really fun. You should try it." And the kids are like peer pressured to do it. So then it always starts with school and family and their background.
Come on, everybody.
If anyone else wants to answer that question.
I would say the teachers do kind of play a role in it too, because they are with them for majority of the day. So they should still be caring for their students and making sure they're okay and making sure they're not falling into the wrong hands, because they are with them with the students.
I do agree. The 8 hours you do spend in school, as you mentioned, is very important to a child, because I think that does need to be monitored more, because in my personal experience, I've been peer pressured and tempted many times. I mean, even just going to the bathroom sometimes, I'll walk in there minding my own business and I'll see a kid hitting a vape and he'll look at me and say, "Hey, do you want to try this? Do you want to try that?" And, that just goes on, and it's so common, and I'm sure everybody knows this. I mean, even the teachers know about it, even the administration knows about it, and they do try, but they're not trying hard enough. I think we need to go into these schools and really put down on what our expectations are, because it's following, especially, and that stems down to the family, because where are these kids getting these vapes and stuff? I mean, if you're a parent, you should be looking after your kid. You should know if they're doing stuff like this. And also, I think that comes down to communication because a lot of these kids do these things, but they don't, and they know they're wrong. Because I'll be talking to my friends like, oh, if my mom finds out I'm hitting this vape, she gonna kill me. And it's like, well, you got to think, why would she kill you? Like, why would you be in trouble? Because these parents put these expectations on their kids. You got to have a curfew. You can't be doing this. But the kids don't know why, because these parents don't want to sit down and have conversations with their kids, explaining why these things are not acceptable. And that leads into school, and these kids are acting up. And then people wonder why it's all happening. Well, it stems back to the family because these parents are sitting down, talking to their kids, telling them why these things are wrong. And even sometimes when a kid, is explaining why these things are wrong, they don't care because the crowd around them is ushering them into doing what they want them to do. And that peer pressure gets to people. So we need to try to raise awareness for these things and make the schools better. Because like you said, we're in school 8 hours a day. And then sometimes you go home, you got homework, and some people got sports. So you're in school 8 to 12. Some people are in school 12 hours a day, like myself, with all the extracurricular activities I do. And I know all the other people who do it with me, and that presence is still there. So half your life is at a school. Shouldn't we make sure that these places are as safe as possible and providing for these kids and the things that they need?
Thank you for that. I feel like that's a perspective that a lot of us here share here. And especially talking about how, it really starts in the home too, because oh Lord, sorry, our screen blacked. It really starts in the home because, the parents are the ones who raise the kids and set those expectations for them. And then, once you go into school, that's where the development begins. And that's where, like you said, peer pressure can come in. But the foundation really starts in the home and those values that the parents instill in the children. They can play out in certain ways in the school. And I feel like that can also happen adversely when children see violence in the home. And that can influence when they go to school. And, they're constantly in a battlefield at home navigating violence or aggression. And then they go to school and they still feel like they don't have that safe space. So I want to ask or just highlight how making it kind of seem like, bringing it in the home and then also making sure that we're continuing that work in the school to make sure kids feel like they have resolutions to their anger and to possibilities of violence and making sure it doesn't escalate. It's important to make them see the solution to their problems and a way to resolve their conflict so that it can desensitize or at least lessen the probability of violence not only at home but also in school, which either way can be dangerous.
So thank you, YVPC Kansas City, for sharing those insights as well. I also want to ask how you think negativity within the community around you can influence how somebody acts.
Negativity, people may become more guarded, defensive, or engaged in negative behaviors themselves. So it can create a cycle of negativity that affects the individuals in our community as a whole, basically. So, I'm going to elaborate.
I definitely agree with you, Ria. Basically, some people will shield themselves from the fear of danger of interacting with other things that don't involve them.
Just to add on to that, I feel like negativity within the community can lead to depression and people having social anxiety and stuff like that because you don't feel comfortable enough to speak up or just to be yourself around these people because you're always feeling judged, and it's always a bad vibe. So yeah, just negativity within the community it really affects how you are as a person and how you grow up and interact with
How you become a person.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
And to add on to that, with all the school shootings happening around schools and stuff, how are you supposed to feel safe and what to learn and have an education if you're scared to even go to school?
Come on now.
Yes. And to add on what she said, like I said earlier, these kids are, just walking down the street today, I was walking with my friend and she was scared. I don't blame her because the negativity and the stigma within our community is everyone got a gun and they're I'll be on Snapchat, I'm just scrolling through and I'll see people on their stories posting AK-47s and Glocks with switches, and it's crazy to me. And these kids are in middle school, and that's just crazy to me. Everyone, it's just so negative, and it's scary and that negativity as well. People are scared And that scare creates fear, and that fear creates more fear, and it keeps building on each other, and it just keeps getting worse and worse. And it starts with that small negativity and that insecurity, and it just builds and builds and builds into more malice that consumes people.
I definitely agree with you. And then just speaking of what YVPC Michigan said and the stories that they shared with how, like, even when they're trying to cling to positivity and foster these beautiful environments, it really is the things that are around them that also influence them to be negative. And honestly, it just sheds so much light on the system, and specifically the system in America, and how it's not really set up for these kids to thrive and to be positive. So I feel that it's just important that we all highlight, as people that are in this this organization, YVPC, trying to do work to prevent youth violence, that we really focus in on each individual's perspective and the environments that they're in, and then why they're in the environments that they're in. But I do agree with you guys, and like I said, just highlighting to keep pushing, keep being positive, and keep spreading that positivity. And then, yeah, like I said, I want to thank you guys. We're going to shift to the Denver Game Changers. And I want to ask y'all, how can families and communities support young people who may be struggling with their mental health? What do y'all think? Let me know some. Any YVPC Denver Game Changer. How can the families support the youth that might be struggling with mental health? Because, you know, they said that they starts within the home. So how do you think that families can better foster those positive environments to be able to support our mental state?
Oh, and let's pass the mic down first.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Pass the mic down. Pass the mic.
Are we starting with me?
Yeah.
So I just want to start by saying there's not really like a guidebook on like parenting and stuff, but like I guess the best you could do is teach them like, you know, life lessons and stuff.
And really elaborate.
And to elaborate, to go a little deeper, it's like, hold on, let me mute myself. I'm getting an echo. Sorry, that was that was throwing me off. To elaborate, it's like, for example, we talked about on the thing yesterday, like emotional availability. You know, that's like one of the key things, because when you learn that as a kid, you know how to process emotions coming up, and you handle situations differently. That's one of the examples. Or like, you know, instilling really good values within your kids.
Right, I agree. Anybody else want to answer the question? How do you think that families can support kids that might be struggling mentally?
I just say like having parents and like siblings, etc., just being open to conversations about like their mental health, and really understanding and looking at your kid and like knowing that sometimes they just put on that face of being happy, when in reality like it can show up like not just like mentally, but like maybe through schools, like their grades like dropping down, or like kids more isolating themselves. So I just say like being open and just like actually like examining your kids and like seeing like the falls downs that they go through.
I love what you guys said, and then just to build off what you said, and also what I heard another one of the YVPC students say, is like parents actually being able to explain why they put the things that they put into place. Like, don't just tell me, oh, don't smoke, but you can explain, like, if you smoke, you're polluting your lungs. So when you get older, you're going to have this problem. You're going to have struggles breathing. You have asthma, so I don't want you to smoke. Really taking the time to help a student or a young person, a child, understand why these things are put in place. So I feel like everybody knows rules, but a lot of people want to rebel against the rule because they don't understand why the rule is in place. So being able to communicate is important.
Or like when you're like, you know, you say something to your parents, they just take it as like, oh, that's disrespectful. Oh.
Say it real quick.
So like elaborate on that a bit. Like when like parents be like, you say something or like they'll say something and then you say something back or like they'll say it's disrespectful and it really doesn't make sense. When you're using logic and like, can you explain your logic? Because outside of logical, it sounds like disrespect to you.
That was a great point.
And yeah, I want to thank you guys for what you said so far because I feel like we have a lot of conversations about mental health and specifically what that looks like to us and like the space that we have here as game changers to talk about what we want to see differently in our communities and in our households, especially when it comes to mental health because, we all have different backgrounds, but coming from YVPC, it's like we're in this space together and we have a common goal. That's for Michigan and for Kansas City. We all have a common goal of preventing youth violence, and mental health plays a big part in that where we're talking about, if you feel like you don't have any prospects in life or if you feel like you don't really have a future to look forward to, that can impact your mental health and that could lead you to those giving into those risk factors that we talked about where you're predisposed to violence and you're kind of just giving into it. And we see that play out a lot in our communities where we have youth who don't believe that they have a future or aren't committed to it and then they have bad mental health and that leads to violence.
And I'm going to transition right into our next question because I feel like that was really like a great transition. Well, how do you see like this idea of like normalizing mental health or just normalizing how mental health normalizes violence? How do you see this playing out in your communities?
I think in Denver we see a kind of a pattern when violence is normalized in the home, it kind of creates a cycle, and so that kid ends up taking whatever violence they're learning in the house and then they take it out at school or in public and now they're in trouble at school and it just goes down a bad path. So that then affects your mental health, and I think it's just important for parents to kind of be that role model and set a good example so that we can prevent, the that domino effect, I guess.
Anyone else want to answer that question?
Sorry, what was the question?
How do you see this idea of mental health really normalizing violence within your communities?
I think like off of what I think you're trying to say, I think like what a person mentally intakes is what they'll physically release. So, when you bottle up those emotions and you get to thinking, kids nowadays, a lot of kids overthink. So then once they're they talk to themselves, they sit in their rooms, they sit somewhere and they just continuously go into a cycle of what they're going through. Yeah. And the more they go through that, then the physical violence that they'll put out into the world is just, not good. Right. Causing gun violence, physical violence, just hurting other people or hurting themselves.
Right. And to piggyback off of what you said, I feel like it doesn't always show up in violence. Like sometimes people will bottle that stuff up so much when they have stigmas of you don't go there and act like this. You don't do that when you go there. You keep that. What happens at home stays at home. Okay. Well, honestly, what happens at home doesn't stay at home because what happens at home, it stays in my mental state. So even if I leave the home, those things are still happening in my head. We have the ability as humans to be able to repicture and relive, reimagine, reevaluate all the things that we go through. And if everything around you is always so negative, it's going to cause you to want to bottle those things up. And some people do have that rationality in their head and that reason that makes them think, okay, I'm not going to go end somebody else's life. But I feel like a lot of the time it's not paid attention to when someone is not releasing those negative emotions in the form of just physical violence. They could be having emotional violence to themselves, self-esteem issues, a lot of different issues that play into them trying to express those negative emotions. And then I feel like that's why it's so important to highlight art, and the art that we heard earlier by my boy BKAJ Swag talking about releasing those emotions and like being a game changer and using that negative energy and turning it to something positive. positive. So that was a great point that you brought up.
And really just piggybacking off of Bryson and Janelle, in Denver we're constantly seeing this like similar pattern of like normalizing violence within homes and how it could lead to this like cycle of how it's really difficult to break. And so it's really crucial for like parents and like caregivers to kind of model this like positive behaviors and provide really like a safe space and like a nurturing environment for their children to go back to.
Thank you. And I also want to add on that because I agree with that totally and everything that's been said. I feel like it's also important for parents to do that work themselves to, address their own mental state and how they interact with violence, because once again we see that at home where a parent, they don't really know how to deal with their feelings because they weren't taught how to do that, so they inflict it on the child. And it's important for parents to be aware of that impact on their behavior on their children and to seek help if they're struggling with their own issues, because all of that healing starts at home. And if you want to see it in the children, it has to be in everyone else. And I just want to shift back to YVPC Kansas City, building off this conversation we just had. What do you think parents should do to make sure their children don't participate in youth violence?
Examples of what not to do. I also think they should teach their kids the importance of why violence should not happen and not engaging in it.
Elaborating off that, I think it's important for parents to be good role models and provide guidance and support. So maybe they should take in that. Maybe they should take in ID and that. What? Oh, can they hear us?
Wait.
Can you hear me?
Oh, wait. Oh, it's on.
Hello? Rhea, go. Do you guys hear us?
We could tell them we could hear them.
Hello? Hello? Are we listening?
All right, we're having some. Can you hear us?
Can y'all hear us?
Can you hear us?
Okay, yeah, we could hear y'all.
Okay. Go ahead, Rhea, just a little loud. Like I was saying, elaborating on progeny, I think it's important for parents to be a good role model and provide guidance and support. So I feel like the key to this was like maintaining open communication with their children, but at the same time, children have to be comfortable enough to come to their parents about certain situations. So like parents should like build that bond with their kid. Not like, I know some parents are like strict on their kids, so like some kids may not feel comfortable coming to their parents about certain situations. So I feel like, yeah, I don't know. Going up with those two said. Go, you can go back.
So I think that they should like talk to them or show them about like the youth violence, like what would happen in the future if they do drugs or do alcohol, and if they were to join gangs and stuff, like how that would affect their life in the future. Because like they might not be thinking like when they're doing it at the time, like thinking, oh, like this won't affect my life that bad, or like it won't affect me at all, because they're not really thinking about the future. But like there's something on their permanent record. Like if they're in a gang, they go to jail or juvie, then that's going to stay on their permanent record. But so I think that they should talk to like the kids, have conversations, build a good relationship with the parents and everything, so they're able to like prevent that. So yeah.
One of what those three said, they should create a safe and open environment where kids feel comfortable discussing their feelings and experiences, and also establish clear expectations and rules regarding behaviors, violence, and conflict resolution. They should also teach empathy and respect.
I would say being like, as their parent, they should be more active in their lives, like, cause they can be present without being there for their child. If they're not active, then I don't know.
They should also monitor media exposure, be aware of the media content kids consume, and discuss any violent or negative messages that they may encounter.
I think those are all really important aspects. And I want to specifically highlight something I think I heard one of you guys talk about, where it was like how, like, so they're talking about how kids, they aren't really afraid of the consequences of their actions when they get involved in violence. And something that we talk about a lot is on top of like managing your risk factors and, really caring about the impact of your actions, it's also having the discipline to, know when it's time to stop and know when to self-reflect. So on top of like everything that you've said and the previous question about how to make sure parents don't make sure their children don't participate in youth violence, how can parents teach children the discipline to also avoid youth violence, like have the discipline to step away from those situations.
Explain to them why it's important not to do it. When you take a child's phone away, don't just take it away, but explain why they took it away.
Yeah, like, okay, so elaborating off that, like, personal experiences. Okay, so I get my phone taken, boom, I'm like, okay, I should not do this because I'm getting my phone taken. No, you should not do it because you shouldn't do it, period. Not because, oh, I got my phone taken, so I think not to do it because I don't want to get my phone taken.
Bro, I think that that's so important what you just said, because I think that a lot of people, again, miss the whole point of why the rule is being put in place. And then a lot of youth, they're like, okay, well, if I shouldn't do this because I'm going to get my phone taken, then I'm just going to go buy my own phone. Then they can't take it, and I'm still going to keep doing the same thing. So I think that that's really important. So we've talked about the importance of grit and discipline within navigating challenges. So I want to shift back to the focus of school and schools, because we spend so much time in school, and me as a 21-year-old, I've spent at least 12, 13, 14, 15 years in a school, almost 8 hours plus a day. So how do you think that schools should address and prevent violence and bullying? And how do you think that the school environment itself contributes to the negativity?
I think it contributes because kids spend a lot of time at school, and they feed off the negativity of what they're around. So I feel like it plays a big part in it. Also, to address bullying and violence, I feel like they should help the kids understand why it's important not to do it. Give them a view of how can it affect their lives in the future.
Go ahead. Manaya, go.
Okay, so basically adding on to what Roger Meek said, bullying and like the negativity that they're around, it impacts not themselves future, but others' futures as well as they grow up into like what they're seeing around and been around, and it shows. No, I don't. It's too quiet. It shows like how to like perceive or what's the word? Basically, it shows like. Yeah, no.
So what do you guys think that the schools can do to address it? Like, what are some things, like therapy, group therapy sessions, stuff like that?
I think no matter what we do, there will be a little bit of in schools. I think it's natural, but I think what we need to do to eliminate as much as possible is teach people to stand up. Because a lot of people are so focused on trying not to get people to do it, but it's going to happen. I mean, you see it in just in life, bad things happen. We need to teach people to stand up for bullying, and not the person getting bullied, but the people who see it. Because a lot of people see the bullying happen and they know it's happening, but they don't do anything. We need to teach these kids when they see bullying to go to a trusted adult, and we need to make sure that kids are comfortable going to these trusted adults and talking to these people, and we need people to stand up against bullying. The person getting bullied, it's hard for them to stand up. It's almost impossible. But the person who sees it, they can go to somebody who can stop it. And I think we need to raise awareness for the people that see it, because the person who sees it and does nothing about it is just as bad as the bully, in my opinion. You need to stand up for the things you see.
I agree. Yeah, they also need to create. Go ahead. They also need to create clear policies that address the bullying and harassment that ensures enforcement.
I also agree with what they both said. I also think creating more programs like this, giving kids more opportunities to be a part of positive things, so they can move further from bullying and move more to encouraging positive things in their schools and their communities.
I would say like just by like walking through the schools, you can see like they try to like show not to bully. Like they put like posters around, but like that's just like a paper on the wall. Kids, like, if you're not getting your attention, then it's useful. It's not useful at all.
Going off what they both said, they should create programs that educate students about the impact of bullying and promote empathy and teach conflict resolution skills.
Thank you for that. I love the specific examples y'all gave of like what things, not only what youth and people who witnessing bullying should do in that situation, but also like specifically holding school administration accountable. Because I feel like we see that a lot where kids will get bullied and their friends will witness it and people witness it, and some people might go as far as to report it, but the schools just don't see it as something that's worth their time a lot of the time until something bad happens. And bullying is, if not a subtle way perpetrating youth violence. It's just in a way of harassment. And I feel like that just goes into, once again, everything that we do here at YVPC and making sure that youth are able to communicate clearly with each other and also, not give into these ways of harming each other. And when it comes to schools addressing and preventing interpersonal violence and bullying, I think it's crucial for educators and administrators to create a safe and inclusive environment for all the students, regardless of if they're the people getting bullied, if they're the people witnessing it, or if there's the kids where there's something wrong beyond that, where they feel like they need to be bullying. And I feel like, as you said, that includes implementing comprehensive anti-bullying policies and providing training for staff on conflict resolution, recognizing the signs of violence, as well as fostering a community of respect and empathy among students.
And it's also about making sure that schools offer support services to students who also may be experiencing or witnessing violence, just like you guys said. So this looks like counseling or creating peer support groups. And as for how the school environment can breed or encourage youth to encourage youth violence, it often comes down to issues like overcrowded classrooms or the lack of resources for mental health within the schools or mental health support, and a failure to address bullying efficiently. So creating a positive school climate where students feel supported and also feel valued can go a long way in preventing youth violence within all schools.
So on that hand, we're going to shift back to the game changers again. Thank you, Kansas City. We're going to hop back to you in a second, but thank you for that interaction right there. So our next question is for the game changers. Would you like to add to the topic of bullying, and what do you think could be done to better address this here in Denver?
Me personally, I think that, you feel me? Like I feel what they were saying. Kansas City. I feel what they were saying on standing up, but I feel like we should teach the original person being bullied to also stand up for themselves. Because you feel me, you don't stand for nothing, you'll fall for anything. And your person's gonna do only what you allow them to. So you feel me? Ultimately it's up to you. I mean, not that you're getting bullied, but you feel me? You do something, they go stop, they go no, that next time I'm not easy pickets, and they're not gonna try to challenge you.
I'd say that a lot of schools don't really take bullying as seriously as like violence, etc. I definitely think that there should be like a strict policy on bullying, because bullying can take the victim so far, such as like suicide or like having disorders, things like that. So I say that we should have like more counselors there for the students, like therapy and classes and programs. I'd say.
I also think that schools should help the person that's being the bully, because you feel me? I feel like bullies sometimes they come outside of their homes where they feel like maybe they're being picked on. So then they go outside and find someone that they could do the same thing to. Yeah, hurt people.
That point right there, we need to hear hurt people. Because going back to what we talked about with mental health, mental health manifests in so many different ways. For some people, it's depression and being closed off from the people around them. And in some people, it's also in anger, where you feel like if you don't have control of your life or the circumstances around you, you take it out on the people around you, your family, your friends, or people who don't deserve it. Like cases we have with bullying where, as Bryson said, helping the bully because they might be going through something too. And you can, not in that way, but kill two birds with one stone, help both people with their situations without causing more harm, and shifting our focus back to mental health, especially among Black youth. Let's explore some of the strategies for coping with stress and promoting mental wellness. So I want to ask you again, the game changers, what are some effective strategies that you've seen or used to cope with stress and promote mental wellness among yourselves? Excuse me.
Got it.
Period, Pookie.
Okay, for me, I feel like what really helps with like stress is being able to kind of be able to disconnect from the issue at hand. Like sometimes you really do just have to walk away from a situation and circle back before like reacting to a situation, and you want to respond, not react. For me, that is, I don't know, finding soothing things like listening to music, or I crochet or something like that. Just something for me that just helps me not overreact to a situation.
I feel like for me, it's confiding in a good friend. Confide in your friends, man. What Broad Wave say? Call your friends. What? Call your friends, man. Check up on them. If you're doing bad, man, call them. Me personally, I was gonna say my. You feel me? I usually call my guy. You feel me? I usually call my guy. You feel me? And we get through it.
Thank you, Keyshawn. So, just building on Jordan and Keyshawn's responses, and I'm pretty sure the rest of you guys also have coping strategies of how you deal with stress, or just like if you're going through a mental health crisis at the moment. So, just kind of building on that idea, how do you think creating safe spaces within families and communities for young people help like openly discuss these conversations about mental health challenges without the fear of kind of being judged by your family, your friends, or just the stigma in general?
Sorry, one more time.
Keyshawn.
Families create safe places without making it a place of judgment.
Oh, like how we were talking about yesterday with like don't say that.
Oh, say it in the mic.
The Mac.
Shut up.
So yesterday we talked big on like how, or not yesterday, was it the docu? You try either way. It's where like you'll come to like your parents or like you'll say something like that and they'll be like, "No, don't say that. You don't mean that," and stuff like that. And I feel like it really boils down to your relationship with your folks. Like, if you have a strong bond, if you talk with them a lot, we gotta like open like a conversation to where it's less like weird to talk about things with your parents.
I think that's smart.
Comfortability.
Just adding on to that, I think even just creating like a set time, like once a month or every other month, just you and your family, you could sit down and have a conversation about whatever is going on in your life, whether it's like the bad stuff or the good stuff. Maybe you talk about grades if you need help in school. Just being able to be open with your family is just very important. So yeah, that was good.
And I think like even for people who feel like they don't have a family to come back to because their family members are always working, like their mother and father are always working, so they just come back home alone. I think it's also like kind of what Keyshawn was saying earlier. You have to confide within your community, within your friends, and making sure that you're able to find someone you can accurately express your emotions and your feelings to, because that could really get you through your hard time.
And does anyone else take that on?
So
Okay.
like 4 people, 5 people talking. I heard from you. I heard from you, or you.
Okay. Well, we all know how we feel. We have these conversations. But I feel like that perspective, especially what you talked about, Jordan, about having time to come with your family to talk, because that really does, like, in our community and in our spaces where we talk about the risk of suicide, a lot of people get to that point because they feel like they don't have a space where they can talk about it, or they feel in their household their feelings won't be understood. And that's something that plagues a lot of youth. And even if it's not in between person, suicide prevention is part of youth violence prevention because it's stopping youth from hurting themselves. And I feel like just that suggestion of like having a set time to talk to your family, it can prevent so many people from going months and months on end feeling like they don't have that connection, they have no one to talk to. And I know that here in our community, we had a screening of a documentary speaking about instances of suicide in our own community. And I actually want to take a brief look at that trailer for the documentary so we can give everyone on this call and everybody watching a glimpse into the powerful narratives and the important themes that were discussed among the game changers in our community. Struggle. Suicide rates among Black youth have risen by 78% in the past 2 decades.
Imagine navigating a world where societal pressures dictates norms and expectations.
Life is just hard for our kids. To feel that ending your life is the best choice, you've got to really see what is it that these kids are going through. What's the inadequacy? Where's the lack of love? Why don't we understand that life is beyond being 15, 16, 17 years old? It's not right. That's what causes our young men to feel that if these streets aren't going to take me out, I'm going to take myself out. That's how painful it is for some of our young men and some of our young women even to be going through this stuff. Well, you can't even imagine living another 24 hours because today hurts so bad.
So just showing that brief trailer, that was a trailer for the documentary Voices Unheard, Breaking the Silence on Mental Health in the Black Community, and we strongly suggest that anyone watching this call be able to watch it because it just really emphasizes everything we just talked about and why it's important to have these conversations among our community.
And additionally, I want to pose a question to each and every one of y'all. How can we use the insights from the documentary to kind of initiate this meaningful conversations of the lack of mental health and advocacy within our communities?
I mean, just like be more attentive about that kind of stuff, because that's really, I feel like that's really what the documentary was like based around. So just like take something from it and be like more like attentive of it.
The question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Finish your sentence.
Basically simple. Like the documentary is called Voices Unheard. So I just feel like instead of like what we can do is just make sure voices are heard in our community.
And thank you for tapping in. I also want to ask you guys there before we continue, what does mental health look like in your community? Just simply, what does it look like for you in terms of like suicide and getting help?
A struggle. We don't really have many resources for the youth out here to get help with their mental health, so they struggle a lot on speaking up with it. They tend to turn to violence, attitudes, drugs,
alcohol. Most of them don't even like acknowledge it. Like they just push it off to the side.
Yeah, they just hold it in. So all that, they just like to let it build up. Because they have nobody to talk to.
Yep, and they let it reflect on the next person.
The other person, you know.
I'll say that the community that I'm in, mental health, it's almost like a stigma towards it. Like it's almost taboo to talk about it because you're just supposed to thug it out. It's like it's such a it's almost like you're not allowed to talk about it, and when you do, it's seen as a weakness. But really, everyone's going through it, and we should lift that stigma so we're more comfortable to talk about the problems that we have.
Yeah, parents say, like Thomas said, thug it out. I hear that a lot. Like for us, mental health, just thug it out. But like kids are really like struggling for real. So like, I just feel like that thug it out term should not even be used. It's like, what's the meaning behind that?
I don't know. Let it keep building up. Right. Parents also steer away from speaking on mental health as if kids don't have issues. They always say you're a child, stay in child's place. Children don't go through this. Children don't have that. Since we don't have bills or responsibility, we have no need to have mental health issues.
How you depressed when you're a teenager? I heard that one.
Right, you're depressed. You're a teenager. How are you depressed? You don't have bills. You don't have responsibility. The only thing your job is to do is supposed to go home.
Yeah. So what is it that depresses you?
The fact that our parents are not there,
Yeah.
and still away from it, as if we're not human too, as if we don't go through things too. We go to school, we go out places that can depress us as well. Parents speak on it.
You know, I think a lot of teenagers have a lot of untapped trauma, you know, like casual trauma, like things that happened in their life, but they grew up around it. Like me personally, I grew up in a situation and I just thought it was normal. And it wasn't until recently I had the revelation when I was talking to other kids my age and I was talking to my dad about it. When I grew up, it wasn't normal, and that really shocked me. And I found out I had a lot of trauma that I just never addressed, and maybe that's why I turned out and made some decisions that I made. I'm not going to specifics, but you know that was kind of shocked me, and it made me realize how many other kids are like this, that they grew up in traumatic situations and never realized what was going on, and now they have this untapped trauma that is just eating them away inside, and they can't just talk to nobody because there's a stigma around talking about it.
Yeah, like Rajanique was saying, like building on the teenagers can't be depressed. They hear that from their parents. Like I've been told before, teenagers can't be depressed. But like we have feelings like everybody else. We're human. We're not we're not things to just do.
Right now, I believe that teenagers can be
Teenagers can't be depressed.
And I feel like if we normalize teenagers being depressed, a lot of us wouldn't be as depressed as we are. A lot of us will speak up. A lot of us will use our voices to do positive things. We wouldn't be so shallow and so quiet, you know. If parents normalized us being depressed, if parents actually stepped forward and was normalized what we were going through.
Yeah, I definitely agree with Thomas and Arshanique and Rhea and them said. I think like mental health here in Kansas City, it's like a drug. Like we struggle with it, we can't get away from it, and like there's nothing to like cure that, and no one's trying to help.
It's like a repeated cycle. You know, our parents didn't get help, so now we don't get help. Woo.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it should stop with us, you know.
Yeah, and we're building our own future, trying to stop what's happening. But like no one else is helping. We have to do it ourselves, and that's not how it's supposed to be. Parents take care of people. We're trying to take care of ourselves.
It's kids taking care of parents. Basically, we the next generation that's helping our parents heal traumas. You know.
Thank you for all those points, because I feel like that's really aligns with what the entire conversation on mental health should be about. Is not only acknowledging that children or teenagers can have these issues, but that it should be normalized to talk about it, and that it shouldn't just be some last-ditch effort when you find out that a student is suicidal, or if you find out that a student has to go on medication. It shouldn't result to being the worst possible situation before parents acknowledge a student's mental health. And just as we close this conversation, I want to ask one more question for everyone, YBPC Kansas City and Game Changers. Speaking of the documentary that we were on, or that we were talking about, and just the conversation on mental health in general, how can we initiate meaningful conversations and promote mental health advocacy within our communities? And you can start Kansas City, and we'll come back to Game Changers.
I feel like we should like have an event to like where everyone and their parents just like sit down and have like a meaningful conversation, to where you talk and they listen, no feedback until it's your turn to speak. And then we share our thoughts and our perspective on why this or why that, or what you did or didn't do. Like,
agree with what Mania said. Also, not just that, but creating more groups like this, you know, to get us, to get the parents to understand, you know, why this is important, you know, to help build more of this talk so it can be a safe space.
Yeah, and building on what Rajanique said, creating more groups like this is like, and then people seeing our voices are being heard on here on like social media and all our platforms that we got. It's like showing them like we need help too. We're trying to communicate to like the world, so it can communicate back to us.
And to go off from what they were saying, I also feel like they should create more groups like this, because this group allows kids to say what they need to say, because kids have a lot more to say than adults, because kids are actually going through it. And we just need more groups like this.
You know, to build off what she said, to come off it, I think what school could do is have school therapists almost, because I know we have counselors, but it seems when you're talking to a counselor, it's like they're secretly plotting. I don't know how to explain it. It's just school counselors just aren't it. I mean, maybe reporting what you say. I think I think we need to try to make therapy a more normalized thing and have more people go to therapy because
Safe space.
we need a safe space and it needs to be normalized. And I think schools should start providing that because where I come, school we go to, we don't have anything close to that. And I think if we did, it would really help out a lot of students if they just had somewhere to go, sit down and just talk to somebody, man. Because sometimes all someone needs to do is just sit down and talk.
Be heard. Not a lot of things people don't understand is when you're talking to a person, make sure that they're understanding what you're saying. You can be heard and they don't understand nothing that you're saying. So I feel like also creating groups where parents understand and kids understand like what they're saying.
You just put off that people hear you, but it doesn't mean they're always listening.
Right. People in general should show that they actually care and are willing to listen without judgment. But then,
Thank you. I feel like that's all real. And real quick, just to throw it back to the game changers, the same question: how do we initiate meaningful conversations and promote mental health advocacy within our communities?
I want to start by saying this. Sometimes mental health, like therapists and all that, aren't really like, the most helpful. But if we recommend them to the right therapist, because, you can get a therapist that's just all about money. For example, you mind if so we was talking about the other day how, I'm going to let you explain it.
Yeah, I got you for sure. I got mine. So what Keyshawn was referencing is a conversation that we had about I went through some really traumatic things the past 2 years, and people were like, oh, she's going crazy, another manic depression. I end up in a mental hospital. They refer me to a therapist. And then, like what Bryson was saying about always being in your head and things always going on, and you just being busy trying to transition from a high school life to an after college or a college life, it's difficult. So one time I missed my therapy session. And then a couple days back, my therapy session was on a Tuesday. I'm reflecting on Thursday, and I'm like, something feels like it was missing this week. Like I forgot something on my schedule, and I was like, oh wait, I was supposed to go see my therapist. And then I was like, wait, if my therapist knows my mental state, why is this lady not calling me to make sure that I'm still alive? Does this lady even care about my life for real, or is she trying to get that BBB check loan grant and make sure that she stays
ready?
Like therapy cannot be something about capital. Mental health cannot be something that is about capital. It can't be about money. It can't be about clout. Mental health is real. So yeah, go ahead, Keyshawn. Elaborate.
Yes, that's my prime thing, is that we need to find authentic people and like somebody that well in the community. And also, I will say sometimes what may work for you may not work for other people. So ultimately, I guess what I would want y'all to take away from this is that find what works for you. And that's in all aspects. I guess to promote advocacy efforts, we could have I say personally, me personally, works for me is you gotta give yourself a you day. Like sometimes in life, you gotta be selfish, man. You can't be filling up everybody else's battery while you on E or while you on 1%. Sometimes you gotta take a you day. Sometimes you just gotta take a break, stop, and be selfish. Be selfish, even if it's one day, whatever.
And then I'd love for this last question if everyone could say something. So just bring it all the way around. Everybody say something. And to repeat, how do we initiate meaningful conversations and promote mental health advocacy in our communities?
Can we come back?
Yeah, all of y'all.
I feel like it starts with getting people comfortable and getting people to show up, so that we can start this conversation. We can have this conversation.
I say the same thing that she just said.
Wait. Elaborate.
Just like what she just said, just showing up and talking about it, and just I'm gonna come back to me.
We'll come back to you.
Kind of same thing what my cousin said and what she said. Yeah.
What she say?
What she say? Elaborate. You got it, Bryce.
I don't even know the question.
You got it.
I forgot the question.
How can you promote mental health advocacy and start the conversation to raise awareness?
How can you promote mental health advocacy?
Being you.
Yeah.
Being a game changer.
What are you guys doing now that is promoting mental health advocacy?
Being here today.
So, being here today. What I show now is that it's okay to be different.
Great.
And that, it's okay to be different, and it helping your community. You feel me? Like, y'all keep on talking about how it's scary here, it's scary there, but you gotta show people that it's okay to not be scared if you want to help your people. To not be scared, you gotta do it for you first. And when you do it for you, you show others that when they do it for them, it's gonna help everybody. You can make the world a better place by making yourself a better person first.
That's a perfect statement. Exactly. Who's talking? Because as game changers and on this whole thing, as YVPC, you know, it can be an uncomfortable seat to sit here and talk about things in your community and things that impact you personally, but you're starting a conversation among your friends for people, whoever's watching this, and like Bryson said, being yourself and just letting your perspective be heard, because that can inspire 1, 2, 5, 10 people to eventually do the same. And as we wrap up today's episode, we want to leave you with a call to action. Let's take what we learned today and turn it into a meaningful action. Whether it's starting conversations about mental health, supporting those who are grieving, or advocating for safer communities, each of us has a role to play in preventing youth violence.
And we want to extend a huge, huge, huge thank you to YVPC Michigan and also YVPC Kansas City for joining us today, and also the Game Changers for sharing their insights. And a special thanks to everyone for their valuable contributions to this whole conversation.
So, as we close out Youth Violence Prevention Week, y'all, let's remember the importance of supporting and empowering the voices of the youth. Do not silence them, do not step over them, do not use them, but empower them to really make a change, because we are the future. Y'all know this, we know this, and I believe that we are going to be able to change the game, all perspectives, all races, as long as we stay positive and we do this for a collective movement of actually trying to change the game. Y'all, also, please do not forget to follow us on Facebook at No Justice, No Peace in Unrestricted Revolution. Show some love, comment on this video, make sure to check out our network, and give a big, big, big clap up for the Game Changers, because y'all, we really changed the game. We really changed the game. Shout out to YVPC, everybody who's supporting us, period. Yeah. Hey.
I just want to be a game changer.
The Youth Violence Prevention Center Game Changers are sparking the passion of young voices to make a lasting impact on the world. Their primary goal is to empower, energize, and galvanize young people as well as their predecessors to initiate transformative actions that not only shape the world around them, but also foster personal growth through service, aiming to curb and diminish youth violence. YVPC Game Changers has unified the country's foremost youth organizations, including No Justice, No Peace, and Unrestricted Revolution, the Power of One, and the Youth Advisory Council under one cohesive platform.